I'm just going to play this video, and I'm going to explain how that relates to the conversation that we are going to have today. So let me just play this.
Like this of charcoal, you need to have cut down a 7-year-old tree. The data actually shows us that in Uganda, and I think in most African countries, the leading cause of deforestation is charcoal and firewood. That is why at We Planet Africa, we are calling upon you, Ugandans, Kenyans, Africans generally, to pledge to reduce your charcoal usage by 50%. For instance, if you have been using a bag of charcoal for 2 weeks, we are asking you to please consider using that bag of charcoal for 1 month. For a tree to make the good charcoal that you all want, you say you want hard charcoal, amanda amagum. The tree must be at least 7 years old. So a tree like this would give you charcoal that you call Evireria or Lusenyente, the one that you do not want. If you love the environment, if you care about the future, the environment that you're leaving for your children, please reduce your charcoal usage. We are not going to protect our environment by planting more trees. We are going to protect our environment by protecting the trees that already exist. Just by increasing your gas usage by 50%, you will be able to reduce your charcoal usage so that you can even cook food faster for these children. When they start crying, you cook your food quickly, you warm it faster, they eat and they stop crying and give you some peace. But also, most importantly, it will help with indoor air pollution. The data shows that 600,000 women in Africa lose their lives prematurely due to indoor air pollution, and it is mainly caused by particulate matter that comes from charcoal and firewood. Also, these children, while we're not watching, most of them have crawled and walked into open fires and they've gotten burns. So this is a good transitional option as we move towards electricity. That is our end game. So please don't forget to sign the reduced charcoal pledge.
So thank you. That's about our charcoal pledge, and I think Perez can share the sign up link in the chat as we continue. And I'd like to invite you all to sign this reduced charcoal pledge. And basically, what you'll be signing against is you saying that you'll use 50% less charcoal, less firewood, and in its place use alternatives like LPG or electricity for your cooking. And eventually, once we embrace these small changes, the 50%, we can eventually move on to an 100% transition towards now using cleaner cooking fuels. So, and how does this actually relate to the conversation that we are going to have today? So first, before I introduce the panelists, I'll just give a brief overview as to what biodiversity is and how it actually relates to our to forests and all. So basically, biodiversity is the variety of life on Earth, and it contains the different species of plants, animals, microorganisms, the genetic differences within these species, and the ecosystems that they form. And when basically we can say that biodiversity is a measure of the health and stability of the different ecosystems that we have. And today, as we celebrate the International Day of Biodiversity, we need to understand that we need a higher biodiversity, which will actually determine us having a more resilient and adaptable environment. And so how is biodiversity actually is biodiversity related with forests? So one will find that forests are actually they are habitat providers. So basically plants and animals and birds actually live in this forest. And they also offer us with services like carbon sequestration, and they stabilize the soil and help us avoid disasters, and also provide genetic diversity within the species that live within them. And so as we look into the Charcoal Pledge, you need to understand the importance that this forest needs and why it is crucial for us to actually preserve them. And so the purpose of this webinar is actually to educate you on the importance of biodiversity and also its influence on local environment, but now particularly in urban areas where some of us reside in, and see how we can actually integrate this biodiversity in planning and developing these urban areas. So we'll highlight the current state of African biodiversity and present successful areas where biodiversity has been included, and also see if we can have potential solutions to actually enhance the biodiversity in our areas. So today I'm joined by my panelist, Marianne, who is Marianne Kenyanjui, who is an architect with a love for designing unique functional spaces that respond to the needs of the user. And also, she believes that urban spaces should serve the people regardless of their economic background and should be environmentally sustainable. So I'm just going to welcome Marianne to say hi before we can continue. Marianne, I think you have your mic.
Oh, hello, hi. I think you can hear me now.
Yes, we can hear you now.
How are you?
Fine, thank you. So welcome to this session.
Thank you. Before I start, I'm sorry for joining late. I think I'd explained I'd be a few minutes late. Yeah, I was just logging off work, but I'm done. I am here now. So I'm sorry, guys, for keeping you for those minutes. Yeah, but thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Welcome, Marianne. So maybe you'll just start us off with telling us what is the importance of biodiversity.
All right. I think you've already given them like a quick review of what the session is about, so I can just get into it and discuss the importance of biodiversity. All right. Yes. Wonderful. All right. I have a few guiding notes, so I'm just going to look onto them as we proceed. But generally, the main importance of biodiversity is the improvement of the quality of life, because biodiversity, the plants, the animals, the soil, creatures, they're all around us. Yeah, in the cities where we live, they're all around us, and because of them, our lives are better. The quality of our lives are better. Researchers always say this: flora and fauna, living organisms, can survive without human beings, but human beings cannot survive without these living organisms. So clearly they are essential to our very own existence, not just the quality of our lives, but our very own existence is tied to their existence and to them flourishing. So I think that's the first main importance, because of the balance between all these ecosystems, between the plants, the animals, the oceans, everything, and now us. It is why we exist. So that's the far most important reason why we should be conserving biodiversity, is because our very own existence is tied to the existence. Secondly, of course, when we have trees and plants in urban areas, they contribute to cleaning the air, they improve our air quality. Thirdly, they maintain the natural balance, the ecosystem continuity, because as long as we, in our designs of urban cities, we incorporate parks, we incorporate trees and green spaces, we not only just contribute to clearing them, because everywhere there's a building, there probably were plants and trees existing, and we've had to clear them, or roads, whatnots, yeah. Any infrastructural development clears, the biodiversity. So by incorporating biodiversity in urban planning, we're able to ensure their continuity, even as us as human beings are protecting our existence and protecting our habitats, be able to also ensure their continuity. So that's a second, or rather third reason why we should protect biodiversity. The other thing I would say, I'm just going to highlight like main things, which I'm sure we all know about. We're just having a conversation, yeah? So the other thing I would say is the biodiversity contributes to effective filtration and absorption. The trees, the soil organisms, they're able to literally just naturally filter out any pollutants that are in the water, in the air. So they are filtering and absorbing any contaminants and making sure that the water, by the time it's getting to the river, it is cleaner than it would have been before, because we're already polluting this water. We're already polluting, through different discharges that us as human beings have, whether it is leaky sewer systems or it is factories that literally just, remove their waste into the water. Because of biodiversity, we're able to filter and absorb any waste. And I think I have a lot of reasons why biodiversity is important. So I think I'm just gonna give one last one, which ties to what our country is currently existing: erosion. Biodiversity prevents erosion and landslides. We've seen different landslides in different areas in the country, with the continuing rains that have been prevalent in the country, all different parts of Kenya. But because of biodiversity, the plant roots and trees, they're able to hold the soil together and prevent the soil from eroding and, preventing soil erosion and landslides. So I think just to mention those few points, amongst many other points, this is a conversation we can have the whole day, why we should promote biodiversity in urban planning, but those are just few key issues that we can highlight for now.
Thank you, Mary. And I think the reasons actually are too many to mention in one.
Yeah.
But from your experience as an architect and urban planner, how do you think that maybe your field actually affects biodiversity? Because we see you're part of the people that will plan where roads should go, where buildings should go. So how does urban planning actually impact biodiversity? And maybe while you're still on that, you can tell us why it's important to actually include this biodiversity consideration within the urban planning designs.
All right, so 2 questions. So first of all, did you just call us culprits that we are promoting we're promoting the loss of biodiversity, which I would agree with you. I know you didn't outrightly say it, but I would particularly say that as a stakeholders, we are one of the reasons why, because maybe of not enforcing, the right steps to promoting, biodiversity, we are one of the reasons why, we're even having these issues to begin with, climate change, whatnots. But to answer your question, how generally the built environment, particularly, because that's my area of specialty, the built environment, and now generally in the built environment, urban planning, how urban planning is affecting biodiversity. The first thing I would say is, I think we can all agree on this. Nairobi, as it is right now, is hotter than it was probably when we were growing up. Yeah, like January, February, they are hotter than they were 10, 20 years ago. And it's not just in Nairobi, but in different cities all over the world. Cities generally increase temperatures. Yeah. So technically right now, according to research, 50% of the world live in cities. So currently 50% of the how many are we right now? Are we 9 billion? Last I checked, I think we are thereabout. I can be corrected, stand to be corrected, but I think we are at 9 billion right now. I'll just confirm after this. But 50% of us are in cities already, and by 2050, 60% of the world population will live in cities. So what it means is already the existing problems that we have in the cities, our cities warming up, becoming too hot, it is bound to increase because our cities are getting bigger and they're getting more populated, meaning there are more activities happening in the city. So the first issue, as I've discussed, is cities generally have higher ambient temperatures compared to our rural counterparts. This creates an effect known as the urban heat effect. And generally what it does, it increases ozone production. We have because of the increase in, the emissions that we have in the atmosphere, the ozone gases, our cities are hotter. It is stressing the human and nature species. We are stressed, it's hotter, and actually there are species that cannot exist in these temperatures, which leads me to my second point, the loss of biodiversity. As a result of climate change, as a result of now this increased temperatures, as species are trying to migrate to higher altitudes, higher areas that are cooler, there are species that are also going into extinction. So these are some of the issues that urban planning is posing to biodiversity. And another thing I will discuss is hydrologically, because of the clearing of, the natural land as it is, and now having impervious surfaces, we have increased surface runoffs, we have an altered stream flow, meaning water is now, we're creating a phenomenon known as urban stream syndrome, where all this water is being channeled, back into the rivers, and now we're having things like river banks, what we have experienced in Nairobi the past few weeks, river banks and dams, just what is the word, because of surface runoffs. And now contamination of the sewer lines and the septic systems. Now this is the problem affecting the biodiversity that is in the oceans and whatnot. So urban planning generally is causing a few issues. And I think some of these issues in the previous summit that we had, climate change summit that we had in Nairobi last year, were discussed, and certain world leaders promised a few things that we're yet to see implemented. I think as of now, the only thing we can say Ruto is doing is giving us free holidays to plant trees. I'm not sure to what extent that is promoting biodiversity, but I would say it is a drop in the ocean. There's still a lot to be done. There's still a lot to be done with regards to, kind of like just preventing the already issues that us as stakeholders, us as, not even just us as architects and urban planners, but even just us as city dwellers, because we are the biggest contaminators, us as city dwellers are, doing to the environment. Yeah.
Thank you, Marianne. And so maybe you can give us ways in which in the urban planning and design field, how you can incorporate biodiversity in the designs, because I've seen things like trees beside buildings. So there are ways that, or actions that have been done within Africa or Kenya that actually incorporate this biodiversity?
Yeah, so first of all, maybe I'm going to respond now as stakeholders, what we can do, and then now dive into different things that now have been done locally and and regionally. So as a stakeholders, what we can do now, for instance, for architects and urban designers, is as we are designing, as we are designing whatever it is, we're designing, whether it's an urban area or a building, is to particularly harness the biodiversity that is present rather than destroy it, rather than think about cutting the tree or clearing this water or whatnot. Incorporating it as part of the design, protecting it, and instead of seeing it as something that needs to be cleared, seeing it as something that needs to be enhanced, actually creating more of it, because what we need to do is coexist with the plants and the animals that we already found here. Yeah, so that's one thing as stakeholders we can do. Something that I've seen being executed regionally in Nairobi particularly is so in my uni years, back in the day, not very long ago anyways, just recently, a project that we were involved in was Nairobi River rehabilitation, which particularly involved it's a project, a partnership by the UN and then Nairobi City County. It's a long-term partnership that aims at particularly cleaning Nairobi water. So clean Nairobi water, promoting and preserving the biodiversity that is present, the different plant and animal species that are present in Nairobi and particularly along the river. And number 3, creating paths, rather than going with a matatu via road to the city, you can particularly just go to the river, because we have a road along the river, or we have what are they, bicycle cycling ways, or pedestrian, where is the word living? Yeah, like particularly just, the idea is seeing the potential that the biodiversity is already giving to you as a human being, because remember, these are things that are here to help us. They're not things that we should cover or turn our backs from, but rather look at and preserve and harness the potential. So what I'm trying to highlight is the issue here is not just protecting the biodiversity, but also understanding that it is profitable for us to protect it, because now, for instance, in this particular project for the Nairobi River, because now because if you go to the Nairobi River right now, all the buildings, the existing buildings that are there, the residential spaces or the small, the mabati structures that are there, they are looking away from the river. One, because they're not supposed to be there, because they're there illegally, and most of them are contributing towards particularly now for Kikomba area, they are contributing towards polluting the river. So the concept here, what I'm trying to highlight, is looking at the river or rather looking at biodiversity, harnessing the potential that it has. Because now, instead of looking away from the river, if we can face our buildings towards the river, have proper channels, proper walkways, we can have parks, we can have children playgrounds. Like on Sundays after church, we should go to the river because it's clean. It has playgrounds, it has amphitheaters. People could be performing along the river. We could just walk and stroll along the river and walk down all the way to CBD, come back home, just walking or cycling or skating or jogging. Like particularly the opportunities that these features are posing to us are immense, and we need to fight for biodiversity, not just for its existence, not just for its mere existence because we're environmentalists, but even because it will just improve the quality of our lives. Yeah, so that's what I would say. A project that is underway, I think it's still being planned. It's still in the planning phase, still a lot of discussions, still yet to have like proper I would say like it's still yet to be executed. But what I did see, sorry, along the river is or rather biodiversity what is it, improvements is particularly now in Gikomba. There's a park there that the locals kind of like they are preserving that space. It used to be a whole it used to be covered by garbage, and they reclaimed the space, and it's now a park. It's Michuki Park. I think it's called Michuki Park. It's just in Gikomba. If you go there, you'll find a nice green space next to the river. Yes, the river is polluted, but the green space is there. There are swings where children can play, and the youth there are the ones who, protect the space, and they, make sure no one is littering and everything is safe there. So that is what I would say. There's some efforts that are being done at grassroots level. Something similar is being done here at still along Nairobi River. There's a market. There's something similar that's also been done where the youths, I think this is the generation to really, have this conversation where they just decide, you know what, no more littering, no more polluting here. This is going to be a green space. This is going to be a park. So such things, I would say, on the urban planning concept are some of the things that are really like, thumbs up, to promoting biodiversity. But still a lot needs to be done, because now we need the government to have serious conversations about, biodiversity, and for serious, consistent long-term change to be implemented.
Thanks, Marianne. I look I look forward to the days that I'll be riding bicycles along the river, and probably
and coming back home. And it's short. The distance between probably where you stay and CBD, if you go through the river, it's probably shorter than using road. So these are serious discussions that need not just to be had, but okay, of course, this is the first step. We have these discussions. We all, have a quorum, and then now, move to the second stage, which is implementation. So I would say we're in the process. So it's coming. Those days are coming.
So at this moment, maybe I'll just remind everyone that to follow us on our social media pages. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram as at We Planet Africa. So do follow us, and we'll also be sharing the recording to this meeting later on after the session. So before we continue, I'd post a question to the audience, and I'd ask them what are the potential consequences of neglecting biodiversity in our communities. I see Martin Lois has told us that we get poor air quality and hygiene, and Anne has said that we get air and water pollution. So maybe just to ask you to keep those answers coming as we continue with the session. So maybe one last question to you, Marianne. You've mentioned something about the youth. So how is it that the youth, and actually let's just say as urbaners in general, how do we take action now to prevent biodiversity loss?
Okay, so us as planners, what we can do is just walk the talk. Walk the talk in every project that we get, be it a small project in a small space or a macro project, particularly maybe planning a whole city, is just walk the talk. We already understand the theory behind it. We've already seen practical examples that have been executed all over the world. Ours is to walk the talk. Ours is to do the actual work of promoting biodiversity in any project. Yes, we want to build this mega project, this great infrastructural project, be it a road or a building or a mixed-use development. Yes, that is what we're going to do. But before anything, let us first conserve the present biodiversity that is in that space, and not just conserve. Remember, conserve. Number two, find a way to tap its potential, use it to your advantage because it is there for you, find a way to harness its potential, whether it is aesthetically or economically. And number three, improve on it, add more to it, whether it is adding green spaces on your roofs or adding open spaces, adding balconies, or adding atriums in your buildings that have trees and whatnots, and improving air quality and whatnot. So to answer your question is to just walk the talk, implement all the things that we already know. We are already aware of this. These are conversations we've had, for many years. So to answer your question would be, walk the talk.